Stephen Covey talks about paradigms of how you see the world. So the way you see the world, you have a model inside of your head of how you actually see the world. He gives an example of where he was sitting on a train, and actually it was a bus, sorry, and it was like a nice Sunday morning and everything was quite relaxed and people were reading the paper, etc. Well, all of a sudden on this bus, a man comes on with two children, and the children are really riotous. They're causing hassle, they're shouting, they're screaming, they're running up and down the bus, and they're ruffling people's papers and disturbing people. And you can hear people tutting and people getting a bit upset and a bit irate and just being a bit like, oh, you know, what's going on here? And you could tell that Stephen Covey happened to be getting a bit annoyed, and the man happened to be sitting next to Stephen Covey. So Stephen Covey was also getting a little bit ruffled. So all of a sudden he turns around to the gentleman next to him, and this is Stephen Covey, and he says, "Excuse me, sir, are you okay? Is there anything I can help with?" Kind of implying that, look, your children are really getting annoying. But he didn't quite say that. And the man turns around to Stephen Covey and goes, "Yeah, but basically, I've just come back from the hospital, and the children's mother's just passed away, and my dad and my wife's just passed, and I don't think the children know how to deal with that." And in that moment, Stephen Covey's view totally shifted. So the scenario before, where he was annoyed and he was angry and he was frustrated, shifted into that of sympathy, empathy, compassion. That model that he had of the world changed, and it changed the way he saw that scenario, if that makes sense, the annoyance that he may have felt. And in life, the same thing happens. We look at a scenario, we get annoyed or we get frustrated, but we don't really necessarily know the whole story. We may not know all the facts. We only see what we see, and then we react with anger. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing or a good thing, but we do that. However, it is possible to change that. For example, if you put on glasses and the glasses are red tinted, so there's red lenses in the glasses, then everywhere you look, you're just going to see red. If you put on glasses that are green tinted, then everywhere you look, everything's going to be green. Now, in that same kind of way, if you put on glasses that are tinted with negativity, for example, every situation, every scenario that you look at is just going to be negative. And likewise, if you put on glasses that are tinted with optimism, then everywhere you look is going to be tainted with optimism. So the point is that model, that we create is inside of our heads. We create this model, this the way we kind of see the world. Now, it is possible to change this model. It's possible. So a scenario that may have happened, you got told off by your partner, and so you're burning with anger, or you're annoyed, or you're frustrated. That's the scenario. Now, depending on whether you put on the glasses of optimism or the glasses of negativity, is going to determine how you see that situation. If it's negativity, you're going to be like, he's always telling me off, or she's always telling me off. They're always having a go at me. Why can't they see that I'm stressed as well, etc., etc. Whereas if the glasses of positivity or optimism are put on, your approach will be very different. You might actually listen and take on board what the person's saying, because you know that they only have your best interest at heart, etc. So that's an incredibly important thing, this idea of this model or paradigm of the world. Now, how do we change that paradigm? How is it possible to actually change the way we look at a scenario, especially if a habit pattern's been formed? Whenever a partner says something, you just flip, that kind of habit pattern that forms. And that change is through the way you speak to yourself, this dialogue that's constantly going on inside of our heads. If we change that, we change the way we speak to ourselves, you start to change the way you approach problems and the way you see the world. So that's incredibly important.